Hello, everybody. Welcome to another PowerShell Wednesday. Every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we are here to meet up and talk about PowerShell. And this Wednesday is no exception. And I've been doing PowerShell Wednesdays every single Wednesday, but usually I'm in the role of host. So I'm helping somebody else present, kind of there to facilitate, not having to do that much work. But today, the tables have turned. I am presenting today on file management with PowerShell. And that is an important topic for a lot of reasons, which we'll cover here in a little bit. But in general, as I was saying before I started recording, the goal is to create some more PowerShell 101 level content that'll address different areas that you're going to be using PowerShell with, and hopefully give you some opportunities to get some more practical experience. Still going to bring some of those more advanced level presentations, but I'm going to mix them in with a couple more 101 sessions. So with that being said, I have a new method for presenting. Let us see how this works. Click this button right here. Oh, not that button. Let's try this button. All right, everybody. Oh, I started with the bonus tip. That's not great. Woo woo, PowerShell Wednesday. We're here. All right. And for those who are advanced, I'm going to be going a little bit more slower pace today, maybe reiterating some content you already know. Feel free to keep your eyes on the chat and answer any questions that come up there and ping me if something is urgent. But let us talk about file management basics. All right. So why do we care about file management with PowerShell? Well, it's a really fantastic introductory topic, even more so than AD, because everybody has access to files, and every single job role that you're going to have is going to be interacting with files in some capacity. And being able to move around your system swiftly and have PowerShell as sort of your launch pad is going to help you learn the language a lot more. So we're going to help you in the meantime with navigating your system and opening files and renaming and all that kind of stuff, but also sort of paving the path for the future. And yeah, this is Mark. Paving the path for the future for your PowerShell journey, and maybe some other ways you can use what we'll learn today outside of just files and folders. So let's meet our friends. Hello, friends. There's so many of you. Oh my gosh. Probably the number one friend of the day. And if you're not very familiar with this, it's get child item. Super important. It lists the files in folders. So like you can imagine a parent, child, we're looking down, we're getting stuff that is beneath the parent and within it. So it lists files in folders. You may see that abbreviated as GCI, or sometimes the alias LS or dir. Depends on the OS you're on, but everything we're going to be talking today is generally, I'm on a Mac machine. It should all work on Windows as well. My examples are going to be on Windows. Whenever I'm actually running code and tackling things hands-on, I'll be on my Mac. We got set location. That allows you to sort of set where PowerShell thinks you are. Similar to how you'd have a file explorer open and you'd click on a certain window. That's your current location. So you can set that with PowerShell. There's also ways to create, copy, move, rename, delete, check the existence for something. And this is a gem down here at the end. Okay, that's why I put a beautiful gem next to it, because we're dropping diamonds out here. Invoke item. So it emulates a double click basically. So you find the file that you want to open, then you can take it outside of just whatever's running in PowerShell and you can interact with it in the default program. Could be VS Code, could be Chrome, could be whatever your default is on your OS. And yes, for those asking about what I'm presenting on, this is MARP. So I wrote the presentation in Markdown. It's actually Markdown. And then it just presents it in a nice way with slides. By doing 3 dashes, it kind of indicates a new line. I kind of liked it because I want to be in VS Code. And if I tap this button right here, I can bring this up and kind of side by side run code. But for now, got a couple more things I want to cover. All right, so why no get file? So I mentioned earlier, we're paving the way for the future. You'll look at these commands. There's no file listed. Child item, location, item, path, and item. So no files and no folders. So why do we have that? Well, the great answer to that is that it is generic in terms of naming, because it's generic in terms of what it can be used for. So yeah, we're talking about files and folders, but it can also be used like get child item can query your registry, and you can move around and navigate your registry and create new things. So there is a lot. There's a question here. Have you ever written your presentation in PowerShell? It's sort of, I mean, yeah, sort of ish. I guess if you have demos, only demos, it's kind of in PowerShell. But now we're going to start running some code and looking at some things. So we're 101 level. What is get location? Well, oops, wrong tab. So get location, if you are in PowerShell and you haven't customized it much, I need to make this bigger, don't I? I'm doing the terminal increase font size so it doesn't increase the size of everything. Just a pro tip if anybody else wants to try that. All right, let's see what we get. So get location. So yeah, by default, that's my current location. So let's verify that. If we run get location, yep, that's the path. User Andrew Pla repos. I put all my repos in one folder, which I recommend you do as well. It just keeps all the GitHub stuff contained and sort of encourages you to write more stuff. But let's say I wanted to change my location. And so for the requirements of whatever I'm working on, I want to be in a new folder. Maybe I create a folder within repos. You can do set location for that. Then there's get child item, which we know, ls to list them. And then there's some modifications we can make to get child items, such as filter. That is a very common one. Filter.txt will return all the text files. So let's play around with this just a little bit, see what we can do. Okay, so we're in a repos folder right now. So if I want to get child item and just see what I'm working with here. Okay, we got a crap ton of repos. We don't need to scroll through them all. This looks about good. If we wanted to get into a particular one of them, so for this, set location, I think it's called talks and presentations. So I type it in, I tab complete. All right, so you can see the current path here on my prompt changed. Now, if I were to do get child item again, there's a couple different folders because we're in a different location now. This is where we are. There's some other stuff here. Let us set location. I'm going to do this ... just goes up to where we were. So if you see talks and presentations, we're just going to go up to repos by doing the ... Oh my gosh. That's actually kind of a pro tip. Like the whole thing, refers to where you currently are. There's this notion of relative versus specific paths, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so we switched to this. Let's try get child item. We're going to get all the PS1 files in here. So we'll do the same kind of filter thing, star.ps1, and it only returns 2 files, which doesn't really sound right because I have a lot of PowerShell in those repos. So let's see. Yeah, there's this fancy thing called recurse. Critical info right here. You got to remember recurse. It's how you actually go deeper than just one level whenever you're doing get child item. And Shelby has a good clarification. 2 dots up equals 1. Whoa, I'm not sure I understand the question. 2 dots equals up 1 and 1 dot root. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. 1 dot is current, and then if you do ... it, I guess, goes 1 back. I honestly don't know. I just do the ... And you'll see a lot of times people will do that ... thing, right? So whenever you see something like, let's see, delete all this real quick. We'll do a quick little set location and see what we can do. Set location ... then we can tab and do. So set location ... So ... is just the current directory. A lot of scripts and stuff will use that. We'll use that ... thing because that allows you to take whatever script you're running, a set of files, and you can run it from other locations because it has a relative path, not an absolute path. If it was an absolute path, it would be hard coded like users, boom, 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 oops, so on and so forth. And that's the absolute path. So if you were to move that around, you'd have to rewrite your script a little bit. So a little bit of stuff there. Get child item is a go-to though. Probably get used to typing GCI. This whole, if you're in the terminal like this, using GCI or get child item every day, typing the whole thing out is not going to be for you. Just try to move towards GCI as you use it a little bit more. All right, questions are looking good so far. Let us proceed. All right, so we can query, we can see what's out there. Now, if we wanted to create them, that is a slightly different story. Okay, but not really. Same kind of PowerShell commands we know and love. The verb noun thing. So it's new item. We want to create a folder. We give it a path, and then we just tell it directory. So that's the kind of thing when you're using new item, you can tell it if it's a directory, if it's a file, but you need to specify that. Very simple syntax. An incredibly common thing that you might run into if you're writing a script is you want to check to see if a path exists, and if it doesn't, then create it. So in this one, we're using a txt file, but you could also use this if you're like creating logs and you want to make sure that the log folder exists, but you don't want to like deal with an error from trying to recreate it if it already does exist. You can use this logic right there to test if a path exists. And that's pretty useful for what test path is. It returns a true or a false. Let's take a gander at that though. All right, so we'll do test path /user /Andrew plot. Just keep it simple. We could do more, a very fancy path there, but we'll keep it simple. Oh my gosh, it gave a true. And if we wanted to pipe that to get member, just so we know exactly what we're dealing with, it is a Boolean. Okay, true, false, Boolean. That is what they are. Any questions so far? Let it sink in. Those of you who are newer at dealing with the file stuff, how are we doing so far? We're kind of following along. We got get child item to query. We got set location to allow us to kind of move around. If we want to move around and create files, we have new item. Let's do an example with new item real quick. So I'm going to set location, and we're going to use the talks and whatever, talks and presentations. That's a GitHub repository that I have where I'll upload this code whenever I'm done. But if we set location there, we're going to run GCI for get child item. Looks like I have a couple things. There are a couple talks. Let's do set location, file management with PowerShell, right? We'll just tap complete. File management with PowerShell. Okay, so that is sort of where we are working GCI to make sure that there's anything in here. Yeah, test folder 1. Oops, I'm actually going to remove test folder 1. Okay, just remove item, test folder 1. Kind of simple. Once you know about the commands, they're actually not that confusing, but there's some stuff we can do with this. So let's do a quick little new item example. So we're in here, new item dash path. We'll do period / PS Wednesday test dash. And what was the thing we needed to specify? It was the item type, right? And we will make this a folder, so a directory. Okay. Looks like it created something and output something. Let's run GCI again. And we have PS Wednesday test. Okay, so let's see. Start. We'll do a filter because Josh had a good comment. I always forget what value dash filter adds versus GCI path / star.txt. Yeah, that is a good question. I don't actually know. Let's try it. .md. Oops. I'll add that comment on screen as well. Let's see what we got. GCI filter star.md. 1. I actually have no clue what the difference between those two is. Maybe there is no difference. A lot of things in PowerShell you can do multiple ways, as Josh is highlighting there. But let's get child item. I don't remember what I called it, to be honest. Did I call it test? Yeah, okay, PS Wednesday test. That was a quick example. This is how I actually use PowerShell. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I throw asterisks everywhere, and I just kind of go with it. So we do have that PS Wednesday test thing. You can see it's returned whenever I run it. Okay. And this is where we can introduce the concept of piping things together, connecting all these different pieces that we have. We can get the child items, and then because this is a test and we want to show you something, we could do something like remove item, which will remove it from existence. So let's see what that looks like. Kind of simple. If we do this, there's nothing now, just deleting a file or a folder. But this can be really helpful because there's a lot of kind of file maintenance things. Maybe you have a collection of anime or comic books that are in PDF form and you want to rename them via a certain kind of thing. That's where this type of automation can come in handy. Let's proceed though and talk about copying and moving because there's a difference. Let's see. Does anybody know what is the difference between copying and moving a file? And while you type it, I'll just give you the answer. Well, let's think about it. The word copy, make a copy of something. So there's like two things. If you're copying something, if you're moving something, it's just like taking your cup of coffee and moving it over here. You can't drink more coffee. You only have one cup. You just moved it. Same thing with files. There are going to be times when you want to copy in 2 different locations. There's going to be other times when you want to move things. And Luke Brown brings up a great point, which is move renames the file. It's true. Sweet water. I wish it was coffee. Gosh, why did I have to say coffee? But yeah, let's look at what this looks like. All right, we got copy item. You give it a path, you give it a destination, and this is a full path, as you can see. I want to just take this chance though, because I'm not getting into a ton of detail on each of these commands, and you're probably going to have questions and use cases that I'm definitely not going to cover. So what would you do? What would I do? Well, here's what I do almost every single time. I'll do help. I'll type in the name of the command, and I'm just going to jump right to the examples and see if I can get a quick win there. And if I can't, at least I can see some common ways of using it. Let's see. So we have some examples. All right. I just run help, the command name dash examples, copy item. Yeah. So if that's your use case, you just need to copy an item. Simple. Copy directory contents to an existing directory. You got the recurse examples. If you look through all these, it's quite likely that what you're trying to do is covered here. At least it introduces you to what you're looking for. 10 out of 10 recommend reading the help for every single command we're going to be looking at today. You need to know GCI like the back of your hand in terms of being able to quickly query things and know about recurse for a get child item. But a lot of the other stuff, you can just look it up as you need to do it. I think creating a new item is pretty simple. That's a very common one that hopefully you won't need to look up. But if you're trying to move a bunch of things or copy a bunch of things, you might want to make sure you get it right if it's for an actual project and not just like, hey, I need to move this one file from here to there or move one folder from here to there. Because there's a lot of options that you can take advantage of. All right, renaming. Oh, let's explain. Why do you say move renames the file? Well, because I believe you can rename the file as part of it. So let's see this. I'm going to run through this example real quick and you'll see how I do it. This isn't prepared. Okay. So I only have one file in here, which I actually want to keep safe. So I'll do new item. We'll give it a path, period, backslash, test 333.txt. Then we need to give it the item type of file, right? And that's kind of it for new item, right? Just tell it what kind and the path, and we're good to go. All right, so we have a file. Now let's also create a new directory. We'll call it tester item type directory. Beautiful. So now if we run get child item where we are, we have a test directory, we have a test file. So let's try renaming that file. So we have move item. I do tab completion to make sure it's path. The path is going to be period backslash test 333.txt. And then I think it's destination is the name. Yep, destination is going to be period backslash testdir slash test 111.txt. Okay, so we're going to move an item and try renaming it. Let's see if it allows us to do that. All right, it did something. So let's set location to test directory. You could also just do get child item for the test directory, but I like setting my location as I move around. Let's run GCI here, test 111. So as you can see, we renamed it. So that's why move item allows you to rename things. And it can confuse you if you don't know that the move is going to also be renaming it. Like you can get kind of results you may not be expecting. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but if you encounter a move item in a script you're looking at, look kind of closely. Make sure it's not renaming things. But sometimes you do want to rename things for a variety of reasons. And it's very similar to move item. Give it the old name, give it the new name. All right, you need to give it the full path for this, and then you just give it the new file name. And that's a rename. So this simple example is a batch rename, which you might find yourself doing. Like if you have a bunch of files, the date format's kind of crappy, or it doesn't have a date format, you can go through there and start automatically doing that. So get child item, it would check for the archive for all the txt files, then it would rename them to .bak. It's like a backup file. That's all it does. This is very simple bit of code you could borrow as well. Just connecting get child item and rename item, which as far as I know, pretty much all these commands where you would want to logically pipe things together, you are able to with these file and folder commands that get child items of the world. All right. Deleting and cleaning up. As you saw, it kind of follows along similarly to move item and rename item. You're just going to give it the name of the item you want to remove. Sometimes you can pipe things into it, like with get child item, where you're going to collect all the files you want, just like we did earlier. We got that test file, and you can just remove it. Kind of helpful. And you can add the dash force. You might need this sometimes for certain files, remove item / force. I think this example might be a little bit above where we want to do. I think we need to have a PowerShell Wednesday all about where object is what I'm thinking. Let me know in the comments if that would be helpful for you, because I think this context right here can be a little confusing. But there you go. You do some filtering, you get a bunch of files, do some filtering, and then only remove those. So say your boss has some complex thing where he wants you to remove all the files in this huge folder structure that meet X, Y, and Z criteria. Well, using PowerShell, you're able to handle that. And if you didn't have PowerShell, I think it would be a pretty challenging situation. All right. Here's a practical use case, archiving logs. So let's walk through this script together here. I will minimize this so it's a little bit more beautiful. So we have a source and a destination. It is kind of a simple script, but there's a cool little thing that was used here. So in our destination for where the logs are going to go, we have C logs archive, but then there's this fancy thing right here. That's called the sub expression, and it allows you to run PowerShell code inside of a string. So basically, dynamically, when this runs, it'll get the current date in that format, year, month, date, and it'll add it to the path. So it's kind of dynamic. I tend to recommend doing this if you're creating files every single time a particular script runs. I like adding the date time that it executes. I like the file date time format, but it just helps you know when things happen and you don't get duplicates or things like that. All right. If there's no test path, then we'll create the archive folder. This is boilerplate code. You're going to be using a whole bunch if you ever script anything. If the thing doesn't exist, then create it. And then we have just copying the logs and then cleaning up the old logs, just putting together the pieces we've looked at earlier. And hopefully by the end of this, you feel like you know the different things you can do with files. And then whenever you get a given project, it's just about putting those pieces together. And oftentimes we put those pieces together with the pipeline. All right. A little bit of a bonus tip that I think is pretty cool. I know, yes, when copying is PowerShell single thread, at what point would running robocopy be better? I think the point that robocopy would be better is anytime you actually care about like being as fast as possible. Or, I mean, robocopy is such an advanced tool, in my opinion. I'm curious to hear other people give their takes, but if you have a serious migration job of files, you should use a utility like robocopy that is made just for it. There's a bunch of switches and stuff. Like you can be an expert at robocopy, it feels like, but make sure you get all those switches in order because there's a lot more support for things like if the copy gets interrupted, you want to pick it back up. Question on screen. Yeah. Robocopy. Yeah. If you actually need performance, is better. If you're just trying to do things quickly in the terminal, nothing wrong with it. Or it's a smaller thing and you want it to be more distributable, nothing wrong with just using PowerShell. But you got to choose the right tool for the job. Yeah, robocopy is sick. And it's like an accepted standard. All right. Bonus tip, type accelerators. Okay. If you are here for more of the beginner stuff, you don't need to pay too much attention here. But there's this thing called type accelerators. Okay. So if you are doing a script and you have a variable, kind of like what we did right here, right? This src equals, and then it's a file path. Well, when we run this right here, it's actually just a string. So if we were to use type acceleration, like we're about to see, it would make sure that it's not only valid, but it would give us the object that we're going to be dealing with. Let's look. So we have a few different ones: systemio.fileinfo, directory info, file, and directory. So if you have a file path right there, file info right there, boom, you just add that and then you get other properties because it's not just a string. And I can run that just for a second to show you. But I personally like adding these types. Like if you're having a function for like a parameter that accepts a path, it can be helpful to do this. All right, but let's just try running it real quick and illustrate that. All right, so equals period backslash test111.txt. Okay. File. We can't do anything to this. Oops. Oh, I didn't make it a, whoops. Didn't make it a string. All right. Oh, I actually think we should make it an absolute path. I'm curious if this works because you see how we just do a relative path. I wonder if the system.io.fileinfo works for that. Oof. Okay. And it does look like it worked. Okay. But yeah, you can see this is a file info object rather than just a string. A string can do nothing really. This is real. And same thing works for directory and other things. So just a little bit of a tip there for you, more advanced scripters or those who are looking to write functions that accept file info or paths of any kind. Are there any other questions before we wrap up PowerShell Wednesday? Give you all a few moments. I'll have these uploaded to my GitHub if anybody wants to tune in there and follow along. It's actually just this. So the whole presentation, it's just a bunch of code with a couple of headers, markdown file ultimately. Boom. Yeah, Luke. So those are called type accelerators. There's the most helpful type accelerator. Like those are cool, but the most helpful one is just, yeah. The most helpful one is PS custom object. Oops, it did it for me. Yep. You can just quickly create a PS custom object. You don't even need to do new item or anything. You just do that. You give it your values and you send it. And Steve, I'll get you a link to my repository in a second here as I navigate my computer. It's under here. I think it's, what was it called, guys? Talks and presentations. I don't know why. It's kind of like redundant, right? Is it talks are presentations? Presentations are talks? But here's a link to it. And I'll try and keep this up to date. I'll probably be doing more of these PowerShell Wednesdays going forward. So I really would appreciate any feedback. If you are a beginner, if you wanted me to go faster paced, more hands-on, less hands-on, let me know what you think, because I really do want to help new batch of PowerShell beginners get to their next step. And PowerShell Wednesday is one of the avenues we do that. Another avenue we do that is on the PDQ Discord, discord.gg/PDQ. Join us in the PowerShell scripting channel. A lot of great experts in there, a lot of MVPs, and just folks kind of learning, which is awesome. Ooh, cheat sheets. Steve, that's a great idea. Should look into that. But yeah, we got PowerShell Wednesday every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. New PowerShell podcast every single Monday. Check those out if you haven't yet. A lot of great way to kind of demystify some of the people in the community that you may look up to that may be doing amazing things. We'll break down their stories and let you see that they're humans just like you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And until next week, we currently do not have a topic announced. So if you're interested in putting something together, let me know. Otherwise, maybe a good chance to cover some where objects. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to see you in the PDQ Discord.